And our top story tonight, the people of Jammu and Kashmir are simply reliving the nightmare of September 2014. The government has now declared floods in the state, with the river Jhelum having crossed the danger level mark this morning. 6 bodies have already been recovered from the debris of a house that was buried under a landslide in Budgam district. 8 people are still to be accounted for. In what can be seen as some relief, the water levels in the river have slightly receded. However, more rains are predicted in a couple of days, which is why Jammu and Kashmir is on high alert. Let's first take you through the worst hit areas of Jammu and Kashmir. This is what we can show you at the moment, where there is an avalanche warning that has now been issued for 7 districts of the Kashmir division. The army has started an operation called Mega Rahat, and this is the area here in South Kashmir which has been badly affected. As you can see, temperatures also have plummeted. In Budgam, it's down to 6. In Baramulla, it's down to -1 degrees. At the moment, Kupwara is 4 degrees. So the army has started operations because it's not just the flood now, but it's also the weather conditions that are worrying. Let's just take a look as we look now at what is happening on the ground. Bring you a ground report of people who are coming to terms with the second flood in 7 months.
Caved-in roads, damaged houses, the swollen Jhelum.
छोटी-छोटी बच्ची है, वो गई ननिहाल, हमारा पास कुछ नहीं है, मेरा पति है, देखो हमारा पास कुछ नहीं है.
Yet to recover from the 2014 floods, the people of Jammu and Kashmir facing another tragedy. The Jhelum River, considered the lifeline of the Kashmir Valley, flowing above the danger mark, leaving localities like Bemina and Srinagar completely inundated.
People have been told to evacuate, have been told to go to safer places, save themselves, save their belongings.
The landslides triggered by heavy downpour damaged many houses in Budgam district.
And if you see me from my left side, this is the residential area, completely below the level of Jhelum.
The Jammu-Srinagar National Highway continues to remain shut, leaving thousands of passengers stranded. Meanwhile, people in Srinagar are in panic. Those living in localities near the banks of the Jhelum are moving to safer places. The state government declared floods in the state and sanctioned a sum of 25 crore rupees for Kashmir and 10 crore rupees for Jammu for flood relief.
I am thankful to Honorable Home Minister of India, and they have sent a disaster management team. They have reached here, they had a meeting with Chief Secretary, and they are also helping in this situation.
The centre rushed National Disaster Response Force teams to the state to carry out rescue and relief operations today. The army has launched Operation Mega Rahat 2 to rescue those who are trapped. Union Minister Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi has air dashed to Srinagar to monitor the situation.
The Met Department has said that next 24 hours could see lesser rainfall, but the weather forecast suggested that there could be bad weather till 4th of April, something that is a major cause of concern for the entire administration. With cameraman Tariq Loan, Shujaul Haq in Srinagar, Headlines Today.
And at the top of news today at 9, we are launching what we are calling Mission Kashmir, where we want to connect the people of Kashmir to the government and ask whether lessons have been learned from the past. Let's go and connect the two. Joining me now at the moment is Haseeb Drabu, Finance Minister in the new government of the PDP-BJP. Appreciate your joining us. Shujaul Haq has people with him in Srinagar. And I am going to ask you, Shuja, if they have any specific issues they wish to raise with Mr. Drabu. Here they have the Finance Minister. Let us connect the people to the government. Please tell us there on ground zero, what are the requirements? What are the concerns that people have as the flood waters there have resulted in loss of life and property? What are their concerns? Put it to the people and then let's hear from Haseeb Drabu.
Well, that's right, Rajdeep. In fact, there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed by the government. This has been one area where the new government has sort of lagged behind, which is the flow of information. In fact, one of the biggest problems that I could gather throughout the day was the fact that most people were saying that in terms of disaster management and emergency response, the state of Jammu and Kashmir hasn't learned much. People were criticizing the fact that now is not the time when the government needs to push the panic button and call its employees, threaten them to join duties, otherwise they'll be suspended. Now is not the time to look for boats. They should have ready men available for doing something like this. After all, it has not even been more than 7 months that we have seen such a devastating flood.
So what is your question? What is your question, Shuja, to the minister? Please put your question first to the minister, then we'll get the people's question.
Razi, my question very straightforward, which is, I'm also a Kashmirian, I've sensed it. We don't have an emergency response system. We should not be looking out for issues at the 11th hour. We should not be seeing the finance minister signing up a deal with the boatmen at the 11th hour, paying them money at the 11th hour and requesting them to be ready. There should be a disaster management response
Can I take that to Hasib Drabu? Hasib Drabu, respond to what Shuja is saying, that there is no emergency response system. 7 months ago, floods take place. Now again, floods recur. And at the 11th hour, the government is at 6s and 7s to organize boatmen. How do you respond?
I think that's not a fair statement at all. I was there myself in Srinagar yesterday. I came back today because of the session of the assembly. I was in the police control room till 4 in the morning. And the issue of boats was settled way early in the day. By 11:30 we had dispatched boats to various parts of the valley. Now whatever one may do, I mean, we may not seem enough, but let's try and see what has happened, what has been the response. I mean, there of course is a disaster, state disaster recovery team and all that, but what was the response of the government? The first response was to set up 3 joint control rooms in 3 parts of the valley. First, South Kashmir, Central Kashmir, North Kashmir. Now there we try to do a coordinated effort of having the civil administration, police and the army jointly function. And it also resulted in a response to a local situation. Because earlier this is a lesson we learned from perhaps the earlier one, was not to centralize everything in Srinagar, but to spread it across. And the boats, for instance, in the issue of boats was raised by 11:30 in the night, when we still hadn't hit the danger mark. South Kashmir had 8 boats up with the joint control room.
Hasib, the other point, Hasib Drabu, which has been raised by Shuja, is lack of information. In a state like Kashmir, information flow isn't what it should be in the case of a calamity like a flood. What are you doing for that?
No, I think it'll be the first time perhaps we, as an institution, as government, not as individuals, use social media, because something that's revolutionized the entire information flow has been social media. So we were communicating through social media, we were giving hourly updates through the day. Today also, there were cabinet colleagues of mine who were giving press briefings. There were reports dished out daily at what levels these were and at what points, including what levels were at various points and what we were expecting. So there was a constant flow of information. It may not have reached everybody in all parts.
Okay, so you're saying you're using social media to ensure a constant information flow. Shuja, can you now get people to ask questions to the minister?
Absolutely. I have, in fact, some people here. We are in the Rajbagh area, which has been one of the worst hit in last time. I have a family here. Sana is living just nearby, and she has a question for the finance minister. Sana, what is the question?
My question to the minister is that what is your long-term plan to avert something like this in the future? Because as we see it even now, it's still a knee-jerk kind of a response, and everybody's running around helter-skelter trying to put things on the ground. And we keep saying this is the future, the fury of nature, wrath of God. All that is very well. What are you planning long-term to avert disasters like this in the absence of any flood channel right now? Because earlier there used to be large chunks of areas which were uninhabited just for this very purpose.
Can I get the minute? Mr. Minister, this is the second flood in 7 months, and there's a feeling along the banks of the Jhelum, unauthorized constructions have come up.
Arrangement for something like that.
Yeah. To be fair, there has been since 2011-12, there has been a flood management plan which was submitted by the state government, because even the floods of 2014 were not completely unanticipated. The state government had at that time also indicated to central government that they need to relook the entire flood management system, especially in view of what the way building, construction and lands which are supposed to be inundated around the flood channel had now become residential colonies. So there has been which was lying with the central government for a long while. We are, again, this is only a 1-month-old government, but we have been looking at very specific things like strengthening the embankments. This is one major thing. For instance, we this time also looked at what are the critical points where breaches would happen, and we tried to strengthen those. So the long-term thing would be to do what we call now, it's a new initiative we started just about a week, 10 days back. We were discussing in government the corridor development program, the small tributaries, the rivers, because that's where it starts coming in from.
Okay, so
and if you see, Jhelum traverses from south to the north. So there is, of course, a long-term plan, but this was completely unanticipated. It's also, a second flood, as you said, in 6 months' time. So the responses this time have been, I think, a little more organized. There have been lessons learned from the past. And as regards that one question that the finance minister was negotiating with boatmen, this was a 2 crore liability which was pending from the previous government. So they were unwilling to contribute, which is at what point of time, at I think 12 in the night, I released 2 crores to settle their past liabilities. Just to
so their past liability, but the question is embankments will be needed. You will need to strengthen the embankment. Shuja, what's the next question that someone has there in Rajbagh?
That's right. Another gentleman here, he is also from Rajbagh. Let me just put this in, to him and ask him what exactly does he want to know from the finance minister.
I want to know that in this age when we can predict weather so accurately, and you can really pinpoint how much it's going to rain and when it's going to rain. Why are we always taken by a surprise? This happened in the last government also. This is happening. The same thing is happening now. On the ground, we see virtually no change. This government was very strong in blaming the last government for all that happened. But what are they doing now? There's no mobilization on the road as we see as of now. So why are we always taken by surprise? Why do we wait for the disaster to strike and then we act after that?
Rajdeep,
that's a good point.
I need to add to that.
Yes, go ahead, Shuja.
Rajdeep, I need to add to that. Yesterday, when I went to the Met department, to my surprise, they didn't have electricity. The officers there told me that they've been requesting for an essential line for months altogether, but the power department didn't find it important enough for them to be given an essential line. Now imagine, this is the state which has just seen floods, such devastating floods 6 months back, and this is the state of affairs with one of the most and crucial departments which is related to forecast.
Hasib Drabu, and I'm going to play those pictures that Shuja had got yesterday. Your Met department didn't have power for 24 hours. Your Met department certainly didn't predict this kind of a flash flood. There are questions over the Met department's functioning and the power situation in particular when floods hit.
I hear you.
Go ahead.
We had a meeting, I think, day before yesterday in Srinagar, and it was pointed out that the Met department didn't have electricity. We sorted it out not on a basis of knee-jerk thing also, but have declared this as an essential service now. So obviously that there was an issue. I completely agree that it is bizarre not to have this department essential services, but that's not been that has been sorted out.
No, there is a power crisis.
In terms of this.
There's a power crisis which immediately affects the entire valley the moment there is heavy rain.
I don't think there was a power... No, I don't think that's correct. That there was no power crisis because of the rains this time around. I think we've been having fairly stable power. There's a larger power crisis in J&K, which is a completely different set of issues in terms of disaster. The point that was being raised that we react to it towards the end, that's not correct, because it started raining only day before, and by morning we were at it. There were 3 cabinet ministers who were in the valley, who were trying to look at various issues, which is where I think there was no knee-jerk response. It was much more organized this time around. If you see, the major crisis there that time was even before the floods hit the danger mark. If you now, even now, it's not a danger level except in Ramunshibag. There was a lot of waterlogging, which I think for the first time was sorted out. Lal Chowk was sorted out in less than 6 hours. There was no waterlogging there. There are some pockets where we did see waterlogging, but again, this time around we managed to, this time knew which pumps to get. I mean, there's those small details which we tried to learn from past, and waterlogging was resolved in a much speedier fashion. So those kinds of improvements have happened. And the kind of floods that happened in the past, yeah, sure.
Okay, let's get in one more question. Shuja, someone else has a question for the finance minister. We are trying to connect the people to the finance minister in a state where often that connection is missing. So that's our effort. Go ahead, Shuja.
Okay, so Rajdeep, I need to add to that. Yesterday, when I went to the Met department,
Yes, Rajdeep, in fact, you know, one of the worst hit areas has been hotel industry. I have some representatives from the hotel industry. Here is a gentleman who runs a hotel in one of the vicinities of Srinagar. Let me just try and ask him, what is your question?
My question is that मेरे कहने का मतलब है कि हमें कोई ये नहीं पहुंचा, मतलब कोई राहत नहीं पहुंची, बिल्कुल भी नहीं। अभी तो हम पिछले ही बार का मतलब पिछले फ्लड का हम अभी घर ठीक कर रहे हैं, तो अभी तक भी नहीं हो रहा है कंप्लीट। तो अभी हम आगे क्या सोचेंगे? अभी तो आप मतलब कल से बता रहे हो मतलब भाई मीडिया, तो कोई एक्शन नहीं हो रहा है, ना कोई वोट आ रहे हैं ना कुछ आ रहा है, मतलब हम वैसे के वैसे कोई ध्यान नहीं दे रहा है यहाँ पे।
लास्ट टाइम का पूछना चाहते हैं?
हाँ, लास्ट टाइम का हमने खुद शिकारों में से जाके लोगों को बचाया, मतलब खुद हम बहुत सारे लोग इकट्ठे हो गए तो बचाया। तो अभी रोज रोज हम कहाँ से शिकारे लेके आएंगे?
Rajdeep, I think the question is related to what happened last time. They had still not gotten enough, you know, what can be said as relief and rehabilitation for the last time, because this was one of the worst hit, areas when it comes to industry. So I think that is what is being asked here. What is it that has been done for those people who are still affected because of the last year's floods?
You know, Hasib Drabu, that is a question which is relevant. When I was in December in Kashmir ahead of the elections, many families told me they had still not received their full relief amount. They had not received the promised rehabilitation. Now you are hearing this from the hotel industry, from Shikarawalas, that we've not received what we were promised. Is there going to be an additional package? Because that was the commitment that Mr. Narendra Modi had made, that he would ensure post-elections a full package for those who were affected by the first round of floods. And now we've got a second round.
Two things, Rajiv. Two things, Rajiv. One, in my budget, I have done an extensive package for the hotel industry. I have waived demand charge on electricity. I have waived import duties. I have waived toll. I have given exemptions on VAT. I have cut rates. These are announced in the budget which was passed finally today. So hotel industry has got a lot of relief. As regards the larger issue of relief and rehabilitation, a 44,000 crore package has been lying with the central government for approval for the last 6 months. In the absence of which, not much relief and rehabilitation has happened. 1,000 crores was sanctioned by the Prime Minister, which has been disbursed. I have now got further assistance from the World Bank. We are starting this month looking at relief and rehabilitation in 3 phases. First for small shopkeepers who are completely uninsured, and then moving to the category of slightly larger shopkeepers, and then into private assets and so on and so forth. So there is, of course, relief has happened, but not of the kind that was promised or that is adequate. We are pursuing with the Government of India to relook at that package and see how much we can get. Once that happens, there will be a proper relief, because the kind of relief that was given so far has not been adequate.
Okay, we're going to leave it there, Hasib Drabu. We appreciate the fact that you've joined and taken some questions there from the people, but we will continue with this campaign, connecting the people of the valley with government representatives, so that there is a genuine sense that some kind of a healing touch perhaps is being provided this time.
Just one comment, Rajdeep, just one.
Yes, you want to make one statement. Yes,
Hasib. Rajdeep, just one brief comment. Just one comment that this, it's a bit of it's a good bite to have connecting people, but I was there in Lal Chowk with the Chief Minister and we met people.
Yes.
We toured the entire city. So we are a government that is connected and we don't operate on Twitter and Facebook.
Okay, we are going to, Shuja, we expect you to continually put those questions through the day tomorrow and ensure that the ministers respond. But Hasib Drabu, Shuja ul Haq there on ground zero in Srinagar, appreciate that you all have come together to connect Jammu with Kashmir, the government with the people. Thanks very much for joining us at the top of News Today at 9. Where do I stand? My take. 7 months ago, the Kashmir flood showed up relief and rehabilitation efforts. Now, a tragedy, albeit on a smaller scale, has returned to haunt the valley. For the new government in the state, this is an opportunity to live up to its claim, to provide a healing touch. Winning hearts can begin with rebuilding the homes and lives of the flood affected.